Hey everyone, it's Lisa from the blog farmhouseonboone.com, and today I want to talk with you about getting started with backyard chickens. Now I want to say thank you to Tractor Supply for sponsoring this video. If you stay all the way to the end, I am hosting a Tractor Supply gift card giveaway. They have chick days in the spring and the fall. So it goes right now through April 28th. So if you want to start your own backyard flock, there is definitely still time to do that. They have everything you need to get started: the feeders, waterers, the heat lamp, bedding, the organic chick grower, which we got there as well. We got all of our supplies from Tractor Supply, except for I'm going to explain about our brooder here, but they have that as well. If you have absolutely nothing, you can get started with backyard chickens. There is in the description box below a store locator to see if there's a Tractor Supply in your area. We had one in our old town. I've worked with Tractor Supply before and always love Tractor Supply. And then we also have one in our new town. So most likely where you live, there should be one, so you can check out the store locator to see if you can find one in your area to go to Chick Days, which is a biannual event that goes until April 28th. So we just recently went to the Tractor Supply Chick Days to get another batch of chicks. So whenever we left our last house, we asked our neighbors if they would want to keep the chickens because we didn't really want to move the coop and the chickens to a new place. And they had always had chickens as well, and so they took them and we decided that we would start fresh. We already got ours probably about a month ago now. They've grown a ton. Now when they came home, they were just tiny little chicks in a little box they sent home with us. We got 12 of them. Now we always kept 5 at the last place, but we want to expand our flock just a bit now that we are in a more rural location and we have more space to move them around. So when you go to actually get chicks from Chick Days, there is what is called straight run, and there are pullets. Now, straight run means that there can be male, female, you have a 50-50 shot. If you get 12 chickens, you might end up with 6 roosters, 6 hens, you really don't know. Then they also sell pullets, which are deemed at some point female. And so we decided to go with pullets because I've done the straight run before, raised up these chicks, and then found that we had several roosters, which we really didn't want. We just wanted to have the hens for the laying. We weren't really interested at that point in butchering. We were right in town, didn't want to hear the rooster crow. So we decided to go with pullets. That's another thing you want to know so that you aren't disappointed and end up with 12 roosters. So you'll first need what's called a brooder. Now this can be anything from just a cardboard box to a wooden box to a plastic tote. We have a galvanized tank. I grew up on a farm. My parents had an old tank that was leaking, so they didn't have any purpose for it because obviously it can't hold water. And so that's what we're using for our brooder. We actually started them before we got this in a plastic tote. So another thing you're gonna need is some kind of bedding. We just picked up shavings from Tractor Supply, put a layer in the bottom. Now you'll have to clean it somewhat regularly. They get really stinky. Obviously they poop a lot, they spill their feed. The feed will sour, it gets dirty pretty quickly. And so as they are getting mature enough to go outside, you'll need to do that. Now around 6 weeks, you can move them outside, depending on the weather in your area, that it's not too cold at night. As long as you have outside shelter, which we'll talk about, you can move them outside. A good place to keep them is in a garage, maybe a basement, a barn, wherever you have, you can keep them. They don't obviously take up much room at first. They grow pretty rapidly, but at a month are still comfortably fit inside this galvanized tank. You need a heat source. So when they first come home, they need about 90 degrees. And so we just got the heat lamp from Tractor Supply. I like that it comes with a little cage underneath of it. So that way, if it would fall or something, it wouldn't burn anything. That's kind of one of my concerns. Now, as far as the heat, you want to pay attention that your chicks aren't going to the outer extremities of your brooder and trying to get away from the heat. If they're doing that, you might need to move the lamp up a little bit because they might be getting a little bit too hot. I noticed that ours go around the full length of the brooder, but then I noticed at night they all seem to gather around under the lamp, which tells me that it's still at the right temperature for them because they sometimes want to be really warm and get right underneath it, but they can also go around and not feel like they're too cold. Now there are other options for heating as well. We've always just done the heat lamp method. It's worked fine for us. We also just got the feeder and waterer, We just bought the little plastic part, and you can just screw a mason jar in, and it's kind of one of those continuous drip feeders and waters. Now you might want to put them up on a cardboard or a little piece of wood because they will instantly get the shavings in the feed and water and make it all dirty. So as far as baby chicks, that's all you need. You need a clean place, so you need bedding, you need heat, food, and water. Now we have just put some wire over the top of our brooder because now our chicks are starting to fly. We noticed that all of the leghorns are flying and the barred rocks aren't just yet. But nonetheless, we have found them all over, and you don't want that. So you want to contain them once they get to that point. That's about 3-ish weeks in, depending on the age when they were purchased at the store. Now, as far as breeds, you're gonna want to do some Googling depending on your area. So some chickens do better in really hot environments, some do better in really cold environments. Now at your local Tractor Supply, they should have what does well in your area. For me, we went with the barred rock and the leghorn. We've had them before, and they are really high egg producers. So that's another thing you wanna consider is if you are doing this for eggs or if you're doing it for meat. Certain chickens produce better meat, they get larger and just have better meat, and certain ones are better suited for egg laying, lay 1 egg a day. That would be a high production layer, and that's what you want. You want in the middle of summer when the light is really long daylight hours and it's nice and warm and they have good full sun and bugs and grass. If you have 12 chickens, you want to be getting 12 eggs. So it takes around 6 months before they really start laying regularly, and they start to slow down in their production around age 2. So what you want to do is about every other spring or fall, depending on the cycle you're on, you want to get some new chicks so that when the ones from the previous year are starting to really slow down in their production, the ones that you get fresh, when they start slowing down, they'll be old enough to start producing the eggs. Now, obviously, as I mentioned, we left our old chicks behind, and so for most of this summer, we are not going to have farm fresh eggs from our farm because it'll be around late summer whenever our new chicks start laying. But a lot of times in the summer, you can find tons of people whose hens are laying like crazy because of the long daylight hours, and so we'll just purchase them that way at that point. But hopefully now that we're here and settled, we will get on a schedule of replacing our chicks before the older ones are too old to lay, and we'll always have a constant supply of eggs. All right, so now let's talk about when they are 6 weeks, you're ready to move them outside, what you need to house these chickens. So the basics are they need shelter that is secure from predators. Now the biggest threat in a lot of areas is dogs, but there's also birds that will swoop down and eat chickens. That's something that happens. Some things will burrow under the chicken coop. There will be coyotes, all kinds of predators that can target your chickens depending on where you live. Now when we lived in town, this actually wasn't a concern because we lived in the city limits and people weren't allowed to let their dogs roam free. And so there was very rarely a stray dog. Since we lived right in town by a busy street, there was hardly ever any animals just running about. And so we actually could let our chickens free range, surprisingly, in town and not have to worry too much about it. Now we had a coop. It was just a pre-made coop. There are many varieties. If you're brand new, you don't want to have to invest a whole lot of time into this, that you can buy from Tractor Supply that house up to 6 or 8 chickens. There's larger ones if you'd like that too, but most of them are for the more backyard chicken operation. That's what we had. And so at first what we would do is we'd have them in there at night, and there was a laying box. That's another thing that you need. And we would let them out some during the day. When it starts to get dusk, they will go back into the coop. We'd shut the door and secure them for the night. Now after a while, we decided we did not want chickens roaming everywhere. There's several disadvantages to free range chickens. Now a constant supply of grass and bugs is the major advantage, but the disadvantage is that you're going to have your kids stepping on chicken poop. They will get on your deck, your porch. They don't care. Another is that you won't be able to find the eggs. So our chickens would decide that they wanted to start laying under the front porch, for example. And for the longest time, we could not find where the eggs were. And then about 3 weeks later, you'd find a massive pile under the front porch where a few chickens decided to lay. So we decided instead to do more of a chicken tractor scenario. Now what that is basically a mobile chicken coop where they can peck at the ground. So it's open on the bottom, maybe some chicken wire, but they can get to the grass. And the concept is you move it around every day, because if you do a coop and run scenario, which is another great option, that's basically where you have a chicken coop, you build a large run area, like a large fenced in area where they can go out and then come back in, but they don't really move beyond that. They will tear up every last bit of grass in that run in no time. So to give them a fresh supply of grass so that they can continuously get those benefits, a chicken tractor, it allows you to move it around the yard. So since we only lived on a 1/4 of an acre, that was the best scenario. So what Luke did was he took just a regular pre-made chicken house and he put it on some kind of homemade runners, basically some strips of wood so that it could move, and then he put a rope on the front. Now over time we realized that that wasn't really made to be moved a ton, and some things were starting to kind of fall apart, and it also wouldn't house more than 5 or 6 chickens, so we needed a new solution. So at this point we're going to build from some plans an A-frame chicken tractor that is meant to be mobile, and what we will do is every morning or evening, one or the other, or maybe both. I think whenever we were doing this in town, Luke moved them twice a day because he didn't want them to completely tear up the grass. So in the morning he'd move them a little bit to a new fresh patch. They would dig and eat the bugs and also fertilize, you know, poop. And then when he came home from work later, he would move them a little bit more and they would do the same. So nothing ever got too tore up. In fact, it actually helped the grass get nice and green because of the fertilization. Now, if you leave them too long, even like 2 or 3 days, they'll completely rip up the grass. So we're gonna do the same scenario here, but we're actually gonna build a chicken tractor that's meant to be moved, and then we will just go all over the yard. So every day they're gonna get grass, new bugs, and those nice, bright, orange, healthy yolks that are full of nutrients, organic, just by giving them all that's available all over our yard. So that's what we are going to do with this scenario. Now you also do need to supplement with feed. We always did still feed our hens, even though we gave them fresh grass and bugs, made sure that they still had feed available. We used an organic layer pellet from Tractor Supply. They sell an organic layer pellet. We like to keep everything organic, non-GMO. And then also, of course, fresh water is super important. And then also I love that I can feel like when you have any food waste, so you have some fruits and vegetable scraps, and there's food waste from your garden all summer, it is such a great way to recycle that into food. So basically we'll give those food scraps to our chickens, and then they provide us with fresh, healthy eggs. So it's such a sustainable way to not have any waste, which I absolutely love. Right, well, I think I covered everything there is to know about backyard chickens. Basically, we talked about the brooder and the warmth, security, food, water that they need there, and then moving them out later into a nice, secure chicken coop, whether you build that from some plants or pick one up from Tractor Supply. You're gonna want to just make sure that it's secure from the bottom, the sides, all around. You want to make sure there's a nesting box with shavings, which is where they're gonna put their eggs. And then it just comes down to giving them fresh food and water, and I'm telling you, chickens are just so easy to care for. It is the easiest backyard farm thing. Now we do gardening as well, but chickens are even easier than that. It's really straightforward. I feel like it's such a great place for anyone to start a little homestead, even if, like we used to, you live on a 1/4 of an acre. You can totally get your own fresh eggs. I remember last summer just feeling so accomplished coming in from the garden with this huge basket of produce and flowers and 5 fresh eggs from the coop, and being like, I live on a 1/4 of an acre and I can grow all this food. It's so possible. Chickens are a great way to start. Now make sure to head over to the blog. I have all of these tips in a blog post, as well as a giveaway I'm hosting for a $50 e-gift card. So basically they send you the gift card via email that you can use at your local Tractor Supply. Make sure to check and see if there's a store in your local area with the store locator. And if nothing else, head up there to show your kids all the cute chicks for Chick Days, now through April 28th. All right, well, if you're brand new to my channel, thank you so much for watching. Please hit that subscribe button. I make 2 new videos every week on food from scratch, natural living, and a handmade home. Thank you so much for stopping by the farmhouse.